Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for your courtesy. I look forward to working with you. We've worked well together in the past, and this is a very important committee with a large jurisdiction, and I'm delighted to have a chance to be the ranking member. I want to say to Senator Enzi how much I appreciate his leadership, and we expect it to continue as time goes along. I also want to thank the chairman for having this hearing and the way he's having the hearing. I mean, we're entering this discussion, so far as I'm concerned, and that's my sense of the chairman's attitude, with no agenda other than to learn what needs to be done. As the chairman said, we haven't had a mental health hearing for a while, and so I'm here to do a lot of listening. I was saying to some of the witnesses before the hearing that when I was United States Education Secretary, I often was sitting in their shoes, and I remember going back and telling the people in the department that I thought I was going to a hearing, but in fact it was a talking, because the senators did all the talking and the witnesses did most of the listening. So I hope this will be more of a hearing instead of a talking, and I'll try to do my best to make it that way. Seems to me that the question before us is who needs help and who's there to provide the help. We can hone in on that question and see what the federal government can do to improve our ability to determine who needs help and our ability to identify the person or agency whose job it is to provide the help. Then we will have provided some service. Helps to put a face on who needs help. As a former governor, I always look at things from my own background and perspective, as I know most of us do. About 22% of Tennesseans reported having a mental illness last year. That's more than a million people. This is according to our State Department of Mental Health and Substance of Mental Health. About 5% had a severe mental illness. That's nearly 250,000 Tennesseans. So that's a lot of people. About 41,000 Tennesseans had a major depressive episode. The funding that helps meet the needs for that comes in some part from the federal government. About 22% of what Tennessee spends, I'm told, is federal dollars. The rest is state dollars. In the community services, state appropriations are about 70% of the mental health fund. So while the federal government has a role here, it's a support role and a supplementary role, and it's a role that ought to make things easier instead of harder. In preparing for this, it seems to me that putting a face on the individuals who need help, one group would be a 9-year-old boy who's always been pleasant but suddenly started defying his teachers and his grades slipped, and he didn't want to go to Boy Scouts, he didn't want to play with friends, and so they reached out to a pediatrician who was able to get some professional assistance. He was diagnosed with a mood disorder, and he began to improve, was sleeping better, and so it was a success story for that 9-year-old boy. Another case might be an adolescent, a 17-year-old who had no behavioral issues growing up. He started noticing lights in the bathroom, sounds of water irritated him. He had trouble sleeping. He began to hear voices telling him to throw rocks at anyone who told him to come down from the roof. And he was finally diagnosed with schizophrenia, but only after he had multiple episodes. Those two boys represent two of the largest groups that need help, and I'll be interested in finding out from our witnesses how well we're doing in helping them get the help. Finally, I'll be especially interested in asking the federal agencies as well as the state and local witnesses who are here, what can we do at the federal level to make things easier to, number one, identify who needs help, and number two, identify who can provide the help? Are there administrative things we can do? Are there funding things we can do? Are we putting up any roadblocks that make it harder for you to provide services? If we are, this is the place to identify them and see if we can correct them. So, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to this. I thank you for holding the hearing.